Thank you so much for watching this interview, exclusive interview with Madame Hanan Morsy. She is an Egyptian economist who serves as a Deputy Executive Secretary and the Chief Economist of United Nations Economy Commission for Africa, based in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia since January 2022. Madam Hanan, thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to have you for interview. Madam Hanan, you are in Côte d'Ivoire. Can you tell us, first of all, why you are here in Côte d'Ivoire?
Sure, it's a pleasure to be with you. I'm here in Côte d'Ivoire for our joint conference, the 12th Conference on Climate Change and Sustainable Development, which is a joint conference with the African Union and African Development Bank that we have annually. And this is a conference that focuses on issue of climate change, its implications, and the urgent action that is needed to combat this challenge.
Madam Hanan, the United Nations want to reach the target that has been for 2030 has a ODD objective. The climate change has always been a problem for all the world, but Africa is the most affected by the climate change problem. Can you tell us why this kind of conference events in Africa, how these events can impact African continent?
Thank you. So, climate change is a global challenge that affects all countries that needs collective action to address it, but particularly for Africa, because we are a continent that contributes the least to the issue in terms of carbon emissions. We contribute less than 4% of global emissions, yet we are the region that is most exposed to extreme weather shocks and to implications of climate change. And the importance of this conference is to really learn from each other, from experiences, challenges, opportunities, and build a unified common position on these issues so that not only we are learning from each other, but we're getting heard by others. And that's really like the objective of it, and particularly in preparation for upcoming COP meeting that will take place in Baku, Azerbaijan.
Mm-hmm. So why did you choose Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, for this big event?
The West Africa region has been already found to be one of the most affected regions by climate change in Africa. And particularly, for example, climate change have affected production of maize, production of fishery by 10 to 12%. And particularly, Côte d'Ivoire has been impacted, including in critical sectors like agriculture. And also plays a strategic role in West Africa region. So it was really kind of timely to have the conference in a region that's one of the most affected region, but also in a country that is playing a strategic role in that region and on that agenda.
Mm-hmm. Africa has a major role to play to assist the world as well to tackle this climate change. Why this conference, how this conference attended in Côte d'Ivoire can impact Africa, and how it can help the United Nations to reach its goal to 2030?
It can help by the very engaging and vibrant discussions that we are having and that we had during the conference. And it can really make progress through improving climate governance, policies, implementations, and making progress toward this common position that we've just mentioned. And we have already seen some of this happening. There are, of course, number of major challenges that we face, but we've seen, for example, progress that is being made with the African Union along with the Economic Commission for Africa and other partners developing climate change and resilient development strategy and action plan. We have seen that through most of African countries actively participating in the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change negotiations. And we have also seen it in their commitment to have their own nationally determined contribution toward solving the problem. We have seen it in terms of countries that have started to make progress toward developing their early warning systems, for example, on climate shocks. And we have 40% of African countries that have made significant progress toward achieving that. So there is, concrete steps that has been taken, but also we need not only to deal with it as a challenge, but it's also a huge opportunity for us. We can be a critical part of the solution going forward. Yes, it's a problem that we have not really contributed to, to making it, given our level of emissions, but we can be the leaders in terms of providing the solutions, whether it's through, our ability of sequestering carbon. Africa just, the Congo Basin, by itself can have the ability to sequester a third of global needs in terms of carbon sequestration. So we can be a critical part of the solution. We also are blessed with enormous potential for renewables, whether solar, wind, hydrogen, and just on solar we have 60% of the world potential. Not only this, but we have green minerals that are critical for green industries going forward. So we can really be not only dealing with the challenges, but leading the way in terms of handling the global warming issue and how we can actively contribute and position ourselves to lead the way forward. That, of course, requires also that we work on at many levels. For example, for us to benefit from our ability to sequester, we need to work, and this is one of the areas that the Economic Commission for Africa has been supporting African countries. We supported 16 countries in the Congo Basin area to have carbon, to develop carbon registries, and then also to have harmonized protocols. And that helps in increasing the integrity of the carbon markets, which allow us to get better pricing on our carbon market credit. So we will need to work to turning these opportunities into realities that benefit African countries and African citizens. And that's, part of the agenda going forward. How can we actually have a resilient development that takes advantage of all that potential and actually turn the fact that perhaps like in terms of our huge development needs, we have an advantage of sometimes, not having to redo things. There are things that we're starting from scratch that we can do it with the latest technologies, using, the most environmentally friendly ways, and benefiting from huge advances and lower cost that other countries, even developed countries, did not have when they, try to develop these sectors and this infrastructure.
Great. So we know that African leadership it may be a problem for United Nations to attain its objective, regarding climate change. We know that there is a corruption that has been in many African countries that is not really helping to get where the United Nations want for the climate change. How the good leadership and good management in Africa can help United Nations to attain its objective in terms of climate change?
I think it's really important to not only have to have first the legislation and regulation needed to develop some of these areas. So to ensure that we have the appropriate legislation and regulations for carbon markets, for example, to ensure the reliability and integrity and credibility of the markets to be able to turn that into revenues. So part of it is really working on these areas, and then also, just as an example, there are a number of African countries that have actually made concrete progress into use of renewables. Kenya have now 50% of its energy coming from renewables. We have Morocco reaching 25% of their electricity coming from solar and wind. So we're making significant progress in these areas, and how we're utilizing these natural assets that the continent is blessed with. But we need to also go a step further on how can we turn this also into carbon credits. How can we increase carbon credits from renewables? A lot of the carbon credits that has happened in within the continent have been more focused on forests, but there's other areas that we've been working on that need to be turned into opportunities, and we need to also pay attention on how they are being done. So not only they benefit, but the benefits trickles down to even at local communities, so that there is buy-in, there is ownership, and we see results. We see this into better lives for these communities. So it's about the way that we go about implementing these issues that will matter, not only in terms of improving the governance, but also the public buy-in to these issues. A lot of local communities are affected by climate change. And a number of these local communities are taking steps that, can be turned into opportunities, can mean, cash that they can receive for things and effort that they are doing. So this transition into from the actions that they are doing to the rewards that they need to see will be very critical, and will increase also the accountability, both from the side of the government but also from the public.
Great. So what are the challenges United Nations are facing to implement the goal for climate change? Let's say all over the world. What are the main difficulties, challenges?
I would say the two major ones. One is the increase in intensity of climate change shocks, both in terms of frequency and severity. This is just, we can see it worldwide, whether from droughts in the Horn of Africa, floods, whether, in Libya, cyclones in Southern Africa region, and globally we see many of these events. So this is, increase the intensity and the cost. Some of the countries, the cost of climate shocks in African countries is up to 5% of GDP in some of these countries, and can be up to 15% of their budget just to be able to deal with the consequences. So this kind of, increase the pressure, but also the burdens of what need to be done. A second issue is related to finance and debt. Globally, there isn't sufficient, finance, green finance that is flowing to Africa. Out of the, global green finance, Africa and green bonds, Africa only has 0.2%, not even 1%. 0.2%. So we are not benefiting, as much from that global finance as we should be benefiting based on the, damage and the extreme weather shocks that we are exposed to. And at the same time, we have, high burden of debt that is also quite costly. African countries, as we speak, all of them pay more on their debt service than they're currently investing in climate action. And that's not where we need to be. So going forward, we need to work on a number of areas. One of them, of course, related to the intensity of these climate shocks. We need to have, climate information that is available to be better able to have early warning systems and to enhance, our capacity at that area. But also in terms of the financing, we need to, reduce the debt burden to create some space, breathing space for countries to actually be able to invest in climate action, invest in sustainable development, and use innovative solutions. We can look into debt for nature swaps, debt for climate swaps. How can we replace expensive debt by more affordable one in return for actually taking concrete climate action? We need to also look into how can we benefit more from green finance by enhancing our ability on how we can structure and design green bonds, for example, in terms of reliability of information to track credibly our performance. So there's ways that we can deal with these challenges, despite that, they are quite, enormous and increasing. But number of issues we can work on to mitigate that and to enable us to seize opportunities.
Madam Hanan, we are almost at the end of our interview. My last question, what you say to our viewer regarding climate change? As a last word, what we should know about the climate change?
Climate change is an issue that affects all of us. It's not just about us, it's about our kids. It's about what type of future do we want for our kids. And how can we act now, all of us, policymakers, communities, citizens, to ensure better life for us and for future generations to come, while keeping everyone accountable. So we need to do our part, and we need to advocate making sure that everyone does at local level, at regional level, and at a global level.
Madam Hanan Morsy, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Dear viewer, thank you so much for watching this exclusive interview. We hope to see you next time. Bye for now.